Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. My name is Amali, and today I'm going to be talking about climate change, its causes, effects, and whether this phenomenon is really up for debate, as some may lead you to believe.
Time doesn't mean anything when you're about to be, have water lapping at your nose.
Climate change is really just the natural change that a climate will experience due to a host of natural factors. But in this documentary, we will be discussing anthropogenic climate change, that is, man-made climate change. This is mainly caused by the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect can be explained in the following slide from the environment section on the Australian government's website. Solar radiation reaches the Earth's atmosphere. Some of this is then reflected back into space. The rest of the sun's energy is absorbed by the land and the oceans, heating the Earth. Heat then radiates from Earth towards space. Some of this heat is trapped by greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, keeping the Earth warm enough to sustain life. Human activities such as burning fossil fuels, agriculture and land clearing are increasing the amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. This is trapping extra heat and causing the Earth's temperature to rise. The main and most common causes of global warming are burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, agriculture, volcanic eruptions, and the release of carbon from the ice caps. We asked a local climate scientist to explain how these affect the climate.
Fossil fuels, which are mainly used for electricity and transport, release vast amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. They are generally in the form of coal, natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas, petroleum, or oil. When burnt to create energy, they all release carbon dioxide, which makes up to 65% of the gases in the atmosphere. Though there are alternative, cleaner methods to creating energy, fossil fuels are still predominantly used worldwide as our main source of energy. Deforestation produces a massive amount of carbon. The main reason for deforestation are urbanisation, logging and agriculture. Rainforests have the potential to hold up to 200 tonnes of carbon dioxide per hectare, which not only is released when the land is cleared, but reduces its carbon storing potential to a mere 8 tonnes per hectare. Agriculture, especially in the form of livestock, accounts for at least 32.5 million tonnes of CO2 per year, resulting from a combination of respiration, methane, production and the use of land. Respiration accounts for 8.7 million tonnes of carbon dioxide per year, and livestock produce about 103 million tonnes of methane. Carbon takes 100 years to reach its half-life in the atmosphere, whereas methane only needs 8, but warms the atmosphere at a much faster rate. R. Goodland states that the land that we use is not only producing carbon, it is greatly reducing the world's ability to photosynthesize. With 26% of the world's land now used for grazing livestock and 33% for growing food. The Gaia theory, first published by James Lovelock in 1970 and backed by Dr. Lynn Margulis, who discovered endosymbiosis, describes how the Earth is a self-regulatory system that maintains its own healthy homeostasis. All organisms and species of the planet live in symbiosis in such a way to create a perfect place to create and sustain life. But it seems humans and their avid struggle to constantly strive towards progress has created a much greater problem that the Earth can't regulate. The time that the Earth requires to adapt to changes, known as lag time, is too long to reverse the consistent and increasing damage humans are creating. Historically, the only great source of carbon dioxide was emitted from volcanoes, and it was removed through the process of precipitation in carbonate rocks. Precipitation, solution and fixation are influenced by the bacteria and plant roots in soils, where they improve gaseous circulation, or in coral reefs, where calcium carbonate is deposited as a solid on the seafloor. Calcium carbonate is used by living organisms to manufacture carbonaceous tests and shells. Human activity has far outweighed any natural process in carbon creation, meaning an unprecedented amount of carbon that can't be reversed by natural processes. The consequences of this constant mass release of carbon can be seen historically in the Permian extinction, also known as the mass dying, where approximately 95% of life on Earth was wiped out. The Permian scientist John explains further. The proposed theory that displays the potentially catastrophic consequences runaway carbon in the atmosphere can have is that of the Siberian flood basalt eruption. These eruptions led to a 6°C increase in global temperatures due to an unfortunate positive feedback loop.
Ash in the air disrupted photosynthesis due to a reduced amount of sunlight being able to reach the plants and trees. There was also mass amounts of carbon released after the eruption as coal seams were ignited and forests were burnt. The gases released produced acid rain, which killed forests, again inhibiting photosynthesis and creating instability in the land, leading to landslides and the destruction of terra firma. These factors all led to ocean acidification and eventually anoxia, leaving the vast majority of land and sea organisms dead. It is hard to get a completely scientifically valid consensus on anthropogenic climate change, but you can see a common trend when viewing other surveys. A study in 2004 by Naomi Oreskes reviewed 928 random scientific papers regarding climate change from 1993 to 2003, and 75% agreed with her set consensus that human-induced climate change is possible. 25% did not state their view, however there was not one report stating the contrary, that we are not affecting the climate. This study has been met with criticism by some, as they view her set consensus was too broad and not explicit enough. A more recent study by earth and environmental scientists from the University of Chicago surveyed 966 earth scientists, asking them if they believe that global temperatures have risen, fallen, or stayed the same, and whether human activity is a significant contributing factor in changing mean global temperature. 90% answered that they believed the temperature had risen, and 82% said they believed human activity could alter the global temperature. This is a response distribution to survey question 2, showing that the opinion of those most qualified on the topic is pretty unanimous. The survey was sent to 10,257 earth scientists, but with only 30.7% replying, one could argue that the sample size is too small to acquire an accurate answer. But between the two surveys, you can see a common trend occurring, that human activity can and is affecting the climate. The CSIRO surveyed 5,163 Australians in 2014 to ascertain average views regarding climate change. This chart shows that the majority of Australians do not believe that climate change is affected by human activity, which is contrary to common scientific consensus. The main reason the public's view is so different from that of the scientists is due to disinformation from politicians.
Coal is good for humanity. Coal is good for prosperity. Coal is an essential part of our economic future.
Media.
Global warming. New Yale study says 57% of teens understand that global warming is caused mostly by humans' activities. Is it really now?
I don't believe climate change is real. I think this is global warming hysteria and alarmism.
So-called global warming, which isn't happening.
Calling carbon dioxide a pollutant? Come on.
Look how much pollution I just put out.
People of power.
In case we have forgotten, because we keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record, I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball. And that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
And those with vested interests, such as Willie Soon, an astrophysicist at Harvard's Smithsonian Center and a well-known climate change denier, whose work has just recently been found to have been funded by fossil fuel companies. In the period between 2001 to 2015, he received $1.25 million from ExxonMobil, Southern Company, the American Petroleum Institute, and the Koch brothers to release papers stating that humans are not to blame for climate change, blaming instead the sun for increased global temperatures. This graph shows the link between political preference and climate change acceptance. This reflects upon the politicians' and parties' beliefs. There are also common misconceptions about this issue. An argument that is very popular with deniers is the difference between global warming and climate change, assuming they are one and the same, and using evidence such as higher than normal snowfalls in a year to try and disprove that it is occurring. Scientists can also be blamed for the lack of public acceptance, with some having employed fear-mongering tactics, for example, saying sea levels will rise by a massive amount in a few years, only to have this disproved when the time comes around. This not only creates distrust from the public, but can also create a blind denial, as some are too scared to comprehend or accept the issue. It also cannot be seen, and is hard to attain data that completely proves its existence, potentially making it seem that the science can't prove it. Climate change is a pressing situation, with incredibly horrific consequences if not acted upon quickly enough. So more must be done to achieve a global public consensus on this topic, that it is happening and that it is man-made. Scientists, policymakers, politicians and people of power must all work together to create a unified view on this issue. This must be done before the issue can truly be addressed and solved.